I tend to think of the present moment as like a black hole with an event
Yeah,
horizon. I mean, it sucks us in the present moment, but it's organized by these languages and these
right,
perspectives that, as you say, are buried underneath.
right.
And then how you make use of them in the present moment to even go, to go on. Like, how do we go on from the conversations we're having on anti-racism? And I agree with you. It tends to be framed like we're going to have a success here and move on from this. But being stuck in it also is just a suffering, where no one
True.
feels that they're making any contact with the others. So can you help to kind of use your metaphor of the deeper realities?
Right. I would say it's even more than a metaphor, right? I would say it's a figure, right?
Yeah.
It's more embodied than just a linguistic um, trope or attempt to storify these archetypes. Um, in a nutshell, and I don't like nutshells, just just, but in a manner of speaking, it seems our efforts to counter racism and to address racialization borrows or uses the same epistemological resources that racism deploys. Namely, and this is just one way of reading the situation, there's several, but it's the individual that is at the heart. It's the individual, the dissociated self.
Mm.
That is modernity's fetish. That is what it created or has perpetuated. It is the idea of the self that is rational, the liberal humanist traditional self that is cut off from ecology, that is free, that is free-willed, that is able to meet a world rationally and, under ideal circumstances, using the wet dreams of the scientific method to describe, explain, predict, and control the world. And so when those bodies were stolen from Africa, 11 million plus bodies transported across the Atlantic, one thing that happened, so to speak, was they were stolen into the human, right? The human being not the anthropomorphic figure we're used to, like we're three humans on this call, on this interview right now, but the human being a trope, a landscape, a terrain of acting, right? Or the man, Sylvia Winters will refer to it as the man, right? So the human is this aspirational terraforming quality that is about flattening the planet to co-create room and space for safety of the human individual. Hence cities, hence the architecture of our environment, hence the built environment, hence the industrialization. And so they were stolen away from their relational complexities, the reticulated webs of becoming that they were in, and they were stolen into the human. We're still locked in the human, right? And this is why I center the slave ship as a political constituent in these very troubling times. We're still locked in the human. Anti-racism is an attempt, like racism, to reduce racializing flows. And when I speak of racializing flows, I speak of the more than human. I speak of post-humanist webs of suffering and becoming and interaction that create bodies, right? That supports conditions and creates and also troubles bodies. That might also lead to the exclusion of some bodies, to the centralization of other bodies. I speak of how food and the way we eat it creates desires, right, that might lead us to travel. I speak of sugar and its effects on the British Empire, right? I speak about clothes and textures and waters and winds and climate and conditions, and even microbial gastronomical activisms in our gut that might influence, as some biologists are beginning to invite us to notice today, the ways we think and desire and want and behave in the world. You know, there are neuroparasitological beings, for instance, Toxoplasma gondii is one favorite of mine, very scary critter. Well, the idea here is that racialization is not socially constructed. It is produced by an animist more than human world. What modernity does is to pixelate race and use technologies of racialization to reduce, by pixelation I mean to reduce racializing flows to skin color and other phenomenological features. But in doing that, we reproduce the tensions, the civilizational crisis of the individual, and we lose sight of all the ways we are exceeded by ourselves, by other things. We are trapped in the slave ship. And so anti-racism seems to be the mirror image of racism.